Welcome to Unstoppable Stories That Move. I'm your host, Sally Hed Dahlquist. I've traveled all over the world to run marathons and am fascinated by the ordinary people who do extraordinary things. They just won't quit. No matter what life throws at them, they keep going. Mile after mile, challenge after challenge, they find a way to push beyond their limits. So listen as these seemingly normal people share their stories of resilience from the race course and beyond, and inspire us to keep moving forward too. Let's get to it. Hi, I'm Sally Hed Dahlquist. For my very first episode, I flew down to Austin, Texas in June of 2025 to hang out with my best friend, Deanna, so she can interview me to help tell my story about why am I doing this podcast in the first place? How does that make sense since I want to start a charity for medical research? What got me running marathons? And who's my inspiration? Well, spoiler alert, it's Deanna. And I'll tell you how I've overcome some pretty big obstacles to survive, thrive, and redefine myself as the confident beast I am, well, most of the time. And I hope my story and Deanna's story can provide a little bit of inspiration to you by showing it's possible to keep moving forward to better things. Enjoy the episode. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sally Hed Dahlquist, and I am the host of the podcast Unstoppable Stories That Move. Today, I'm here with my bestie, Deanna Johnson.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Yay, down in Austin, Texas. I came down from Minnesota. She moved down here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But today, I'm going to tell you about the podcast and share my story with you, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Because I've been always really private about it and am not used to talking about it. So, which is why I wanted to come down here with my bestie, my little support system to help me out. Do it together. Yeah. Okay. Like a lot of things. I want to tell you why supporting medical research is really important to me and who's my inspiration for doing some of this activities, which is her, Deanna. It's my, there's usually one person in your life who inspires you, and she's mine.
I'm kind of honored that's me.
Yeah. And how I've faced some of these obstacles and have managed to overcome them. And I hope that helps other people. I want to pay it forward a little bit.
Awesome. So that's 4 great topics. I'm excited to hear about that today.
Thanks. And you've been there to help me kind of live through them.
We have been there, right? So we became friends in 4th grade.
Yeah, you had just moved to town, to Farmington, Minnesota.
I was an Army brat. I had moved from Germany to this small little town where I think everyone grew up from kindergarten together. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I went K through 12.
and I, we've been friends ever since then. But I would say we didn't really kick off our friendship as far as deep shenanigans until 8th grade. It was the end of the school year. Yeah. And we were having a sleepover at your house, one of the first of millions, right?
We still have sleepovers. I'm sleeping over now.
Yep. And we decided to sneak out of Sally's house, and the cops caught us and called our parents.
After curfew.
Yeah, out after curfew, violators.
She is a bad girl.
I think she's the bad girl. Right?
Who's the bad influence?
Right?
I don't know.
Our parents both think it's each other. So there we go. And ever since I've been friends, but one of the things, during those years, we were friends, but we didn't do a whole lot together. And I think that's because you were going through some things, prior to that 8th grade, end of 8th grade year. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm going to.
You can. That's why we're here.
Well, so when I was growing up, I was sick as a kid, which really sucked. And I'm sure.
So you had the flu a lot?
Yeah, that was basically.
No.
Oh, so I'm sure a lot of people can relate, but, so I had this weird birth defect where my internal organs didn't really grow together right. And, it wasn't very fun. And I was told that I was one of 23 people in the world who had this weirdo problem.
Wow.
And my parents kind of would tell everybody about this. And I always felt like a medical freak. One of 23, you probably are.
Yeah. But that's a lot for a little kid to take on. Like, how do you
so from,
that, right?
Age like 5 to 15, I was kind of in and out of the hospital, doctor's office, going to these appointments and stuff, and really felt like I didn't have any outside support, because I felt like my parents weren't there for me. My siblings were older than I was, and they were out of the house, and one of my brothers really struggled with that.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair to him either. He missed out. So I really felt like I was alone. I didn't have anybody.
Yeah. And they also told you that you wouldn't live past a certain age, right?
Yeah. So when I was 12, the doctor said, well, this doesn't look so good. You'll be lucky to make it to age 15.
God.
Just lucky. And they said, well, but we're going to go in there. We're going to poke around. We're going to try a few things and see if it works. We're just going to poke around.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they probably felt, this kid's 13. She's not going to understand anything we're saying. I don't think they knew how smart you were.
Right. Yeah. Because I found, as a kid that, the doctors didn't want to tell me as a kid anything directly. And so I would have to pretend I wasn't listening.
Wow.
I would be in the little doctor's office and they'd be telling my mom something and, drawing the little pictures of what they were going to do. And I would sit on the chair and swirl around and look at all the medical posters on the walls. And so the more that I pretended I wasn't listening, the more more freely they would talk. Wow. And I could figure out what was really going on.
You had to piece everything you did know just from those little conversation bits that you got.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. And so then,
but I mean, that explains a lot of the, like, you would never talk about this, right? Like, if I asked, like, hey, where were you? You were like, we're not talking about that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was a lot of physical and emotional trauma for you.
Yeah, it was very traumatic. It was very difficult. Yeah. It was hard going to those appointments all the time, and not knowing what was happening and feeling violated.
Or how you're going to live or how you can be normal, right?
Right, and then feeling sick as well. It wasn't something very obvious. I could hide it really well from people. I can still hide it very well from people, which is pretty good. Yeah. But, as you can tell, I've been managing it pretty well for 40 years now. Yeah. But so then when I was 13, they said, they did this poking around thing. Yep. and they said, well, we tried this, you still have all your original parts. I've still got it all my...
No transplants.
No transplants. No, you still have all your original parts. We'll try a few things. We'll sew some things together, see how this works. And, it might last 20 years. Maybe, wow. You might make it to 33. And if it doesn't, well, we'll just put you on the transplant list, easy peasy, right?
Wow.
And this is in 1982, mind you. And, I had no idea, no one else I could relate to, no one I could talk to. There were a couple other girls I shared in the hospital room, and they were all going through some different things. And outside of that experience, there was no one else I ever could talk to about it. So I really went through it by myself, and brothers and sisters weren't there. I mean, they weren't there available emotionally. I wish, I needed a friend, and I wish they had been. They could have been a friend, but it just wasn't working with our family.
But I think with your family, like, they were struggling to get the other things they needed.
Right. It's not that they were purposely trying to be bad or ignoring, but they just needed some different skill sets to deal with this kind of problem that your family is having.
How do you do when you have a sibling who's sick and gets all the attention in their mind, right?
Exactly. So there's some things I wish I had changed. When they said that, they said, oh, you might last another 20 years, and then we're going to put you on the transplant list. My 13-year-old mind went, F that. No way. I am never getting a transplant. I am never coming back to the hospital here. I am going to walk out of this hospital. I'm going to go through school as fast as I can.
And you did.
And I did. Yeah. I'm going to hopefully get a job where I can help people doing some kind of research. You kind of
got excited into medical research. Is kind of how you felt like helping people, right?
Yeah. I'm going to travel the world and meet people from all over the world. I'm going to date some guys and experience that and have some fun, have a lot of fun with that, go to some parties, have a good time, and hopefully make a difference in the world. And I'm going to be rich someday. And I don't know why I thought that. It just kind of popped into my mind. And how is that going to happen? I don't know, especially if I'm only going to live 20 years. I'm going to spend all the money and, party hard and risk it all. Yeah. Which I did. Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah. So even... so let's get to the 30s. This is when they said, like that was going to be the end of your lifestyle, right? And we're still friends. We're still doing a lot of stuff. We've now been through college. We've had jobs. Now we're trying to lose the freshman 15 and then the workforce 15 because now we have jobs and we're getting our master's degree.
Yes, I followed.
Right. So we did all that and then we're like, we got to start getting in shape, right?
Yeah. I followed Deanna.
Started doing different things.
Followed Deanna to MBA school as well.
Yeah, we got our master's together. That was kind of fun.
I wouldn't have done it without her.
I don't think my parents thought I would ever finish my degree, much less my master's degree. So it was good.
Yay! It was amazing. So much inspiration there too. Yeah. So fast forward about age 30 and I'm out for a bike ride with my friends and my brother. And I was so tired that they had to pull me back.
Oh, man.
I hooked up my sweatshirt and pulled me back. And granted, it was like a 25-mile bike ride in Duluth. We were tired.
And Duluth, Minnesota is really hilly, right?
It was pretty hilly.
So was there a lot of hills in that bike ride you were on?
Yeah. Right. Northern Minnesota. And after that bike ride, I was just like really upset about that. I'm like, I am feeling tired. I think my problem's back.
That's gotta be scary because now you're the age they said you were done. You're gonna be done, right? And now you're feeling lethargic.
Oh man, my 20 years are up. It's come back. I would rather die than go through this again.
So did you go to the doctor or did you just try to avoid it? What did you do?
Well, of course I tried to avoid it for a long, long time.
Right.
But I did go back to the doctor.
Okay.
And I told, I'm getting winded going up and down the stairs. I'm tired. And I could always walk really fast.
Yes.
And they said, well, we think you're fine. It worked. My God, it worked. We can't tell there's anything wrong with you.
Pretty amazing.
I know. Yeah. And I'm like, well, we just think you're out of shape and maybe you should get some exercise. It's like,
so now you're normal. Yeah.
Exercise? Are you kidding me? Nobody ever told me anything about exercise or physical therapy or what.
Yeah.
There was no rehab back then. None. Nothing.
Not in the 80s, yeah.
It was all kind of like, oh, just here, you're leaving the hospital. Bye. See ya. Yeah. Go have a nice life. I'm like, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
Now what? Go have a nice life.
So in your 30s, they tell you you're just basically out of shape, which all of us are doing. So didn't you do that weightlifting class for women or something at the community ed or something?
Yeah, you and I did yoga, community ed.
And a very smelly gym. Yeah. It's wonderful.
Well, so I took this weightlifting class for women, which was not in the smelly gym. Oh, in fact, it is in Bloomington, Minnesota, which has the largest volunteer fire department. And it was the same gym where the firemen go to train.
You didn't invite me to that one. Why I got the one with the kids who were wrestling in the stunk.
Oh my God. Yes. The firemen working out.
All right, let's not get sidetracked.
This is not that kind of podcast.
I feel like I was left out of something critical here.
So I took a weightlifting for women class because I've always felt like a weakling. I've always been small and strong, and I've been told that I'm this, defective person, and I always felt really bad about that, and just kind of did my thing and low key. And the instructor made us run on the treadmill for 5 minutes to warm up.
Okay.
Well, eventually I did get stronger, and I would start running longer on the treadmill and feeling better. And I started running around the block, and I started running around the lakes in Minneapolis, which is really beautiful.
They are. They're gorgeous. If you have not been to the lakes in Minneapolis, you really need to try those out.
Yeah. And then at the same time, concurrently, both you and my brother and some of our friends were getting into shape in general.
We're working it.
Just trying to
I was training for my first marathon.
Right. And I had seen you at our New Year's party. You had this super fun New Year's Eve party.
Yes. In the garage. That's because you could put all the alcohol in the garage and it would stay cold.
Garage, the Minnesota garage, because it's minus 20 on New Year's Eve in Minnesota.
That was a fun party.
And that's where I saw you. You're such my inspiration, and you were there. Your friend Brian C. was there. And he's a runner. He's coached a lot of people actually with the Twin Cities Marathon. And he was telling you about this, and you went up to him and you got in his face and you said, I'm going to run a marathon this year. And I knew without a doubt that you would finish it. I could just see it, the determination in your eyes. I mean, you are a go-getter. And when you set your mind to do something, you do it.
We do it.
And you put 100% into it and you finish it.
Yeah.
And you're just amazing. And you wanted to get in shape, better shape. You've never been really out of shape, but we're not jocks. Or I never consider myself
we wouldn't describe us as athletics, right?
I'm not an Olympian,
but we're having fun.
And so, I would kind of hear about your training schedule. Meanwhile, I'm lifting weights with the firemen.
Still was totally gypped on that.
And getting a little stronger.
I think
I got up to 15-pound bicep curls. They were not impressed.
All right. Well, I remember doing that marathon, and one of the things that was so fun about that marathon is you were with me lockstep on race day. I think because you knew the Twin Cities, you had lived closer to downtown, so you knew that area, and you studied the map, and you would show up on your bike on all these different stops and grab my jacket or help me switch out my snacks, or when my knee hurt, got me a knee brace from Walgreens and biked back, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you were also just like inspiring me to finish that day because like I didn't have any reason to quit. I had this amazing support team, right?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun, and I really remember that. And we got to run our own marathon together
in Austin.
In Austin, Texas.
2009.
2009. Yeah, the year before I was pregnant with Levi.
Yeah.
Right? So that was the last one I was allowed to run because I was pregnant. Yep.
Yeah. So watching you do that marathon was a life changer for me. Even though you were the one out there doing it, you were the one putting one step in front of the other. You were doing this hard work. And it really even had never occurred to me before to run a marathon, or I've never even felt gypped out. It was just not on my radar of something to ever do, nothing as physically strenuous as that. And I watched you do it, and I was super impressed and super inspired. And at the end of the race, you were still walking. And we went to Casetta's for pizza with your parents.
Yeah.
And even your dad was like, wow, Deanna, you're still standing. I'm like, I don't know how she does it. I don't know. She just climbed up the stairs too.
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot of stairs in St. Paul.
Yeah. So it was really amazing to see you do that. And then a couple weeks later, I was out running myself. Oh, by the way, the Twin Cities Marathon is in October. Yeah. So you spent 10 months training.
Yep.
Training to do this. And you were very diligent about it.
Pretty intensive months doing it.
Yeah. So 10 months. It's a fair amount of time. Yeah. And I had gone out running myself, and I was running around the lakes in Minneapolis, and I got lost because I went over by Brownie Lake, and who knows what happens over there. And when I got home, I realized I had run 17 miles.
Wow.
And I felt good.
Yeah.
And I thought, I could run another 9. That would be 26. Deanna ran a marathon. She's not an Olympian. She's just a regular, normal girl who put in the work to do it. And, I think if she could do it, maybe I could do it too. I should give it a try.
And then you did it the next year.
So I spent another year training to prepare for it.
Yeah.
But what you heard was...
Well, she said, if you can do it, anybody can do it. And I was like, what?
If Deanna can do it, anybody can do it. It's got to be a piece of cake.
It was a good joke for a lot of years between us, right?
So funny. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant.
It's all good. We're past that.
Yep.
Right? But I think I moved to Austin, Texas.
Yes.
And then you started a marathon, right? Because I got a job in Austin with my company. And so I moved with them. And then you started doing marathon. So we didn't even get to do it together. You were doing this on your own at that point.
Yeah,
I gave you some books.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You had given me the book from Jeff Galloway about running intervals, intermittent, which I still do. And when you and I ran Austin together, we did the intervals of run 2.5 minutes and walk 30 seconds. And I was shocked that our time was still the same, which, by the way, is 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
5.5 to 6 hours. I mean, I'm the back of the pack.
We're not very fast.
We have a great time.
But we're not by the cart that's scooping you up at the end.
Yeah,
that's important to know.
Right?
We're not at that.
Yeah. And since then, now I'm up to 169 marathons. And I still... I can't believe it. I look at my medals hanging on the wall, and I can't believe it. I'm like, how did I get here? How did I do that? This scared little girl who's afraid of dying has now run 169 marathons, and I just can't.
I think a big part of that is you were telling me earlier that when you were in that first marathon, in 2004 at the 19th mile. You crossed the Franklin Avenue Bridge, and what did you see?
Yeah. So with the Twin Cities Marathon, it's a beautiful course that crosses the Mississippi River on Franklin Avenue. And when you're standing there and you look to the north, you see the University of Minnesota hospitals and clinics. And I could look there and I could see the very rooms that I was in as a patient when I was a teenager.
And here's now you're running the marathon, basically when they said you probably wouldn't be alive anymore.
Right.
And so you're doing it. And I think that's what really inspired you, because you continued running marathon after marathon. Like she said, I inspired her. I did like 5 marathons. This girl just kept going. Yeah. But I think and we'll get into that in a minute, but you had a lot of challenges at your company at work, right? And that became your stress reliever and positive outlet instead of like drinking or drugs. You were, you were running and you were using that outlet to think through things. And you'd be like, I signed up for another one. And I think if you were stressed, you would go run.
Yeah. As a weakling little girl, I always thought, I always knew I would need my brain to make a living. And so I was just never really interested in drugs, as fun as that sounds.
Neither one of us.
I could do some other fun things instead of that.
We had a lot of adventures.
And,
anyways,
with my career, I still wanted to make a difference, even though my relatives, my uncles and stuff would tease me. They'd ask me, like, when are you going to medical school, Sally? When are you going to medical school? Like, I am never going to medical school. I am never going to medical school. But, I did want to make a difference somehow in medical research. So I got a degree in genetics and cell biology, and then eventually became part owner of a small biotechnology company with a couple guys that I had been working with. And we started this company, and it was great. Our goal was to make an independent living as a scientist, which we did. But financially, it was very hard. We were constantly reinvesting
for years.
Money back into and we struggled. And we developed some really great products, some really nice color molecules.
And what do the color molecules do?
Well, one example is like the blue line on the COVID test.
Okay. So that color indication tells you something's working or not, right?
Right. So, we initially started off as a service company developing tests for other people. And then we branched out in developing other reagents that can be used to assess the effectiveness of chemotherapy. Yeah. So if the chemotherapy is working and the cancer cells are dying, the tumor's dying, it will turn red, green, purple, whatever color we want. And you can say, okay, that treatment is working. Yeah,
and you knew that was pretty amazing technology, right? So you really hung in there trying to help bring this to the world for more effective treatments, because it could tell someone if their treatment was working or not, so they knew if they could stay on it or needed to change it right away versus waiting months on end,
6 weeks,
6 to 8.
Yeah, and all of our products are research use only, and they're still for research use. They're still out there. But we struggled a lot, trying to make it a profitable business, because we were always reinvesting, and it's expensive to do research, which is why this $1 million goal is so important to me. I know, both from being a patient and from being a medical researcher, how much money it takes
to bring
and the effort to bring these cures and treatments, and I don't want other kids to go through what I did. It's got to be easier on the patients, and seeing all the research that my customers are doing, I know that we're on the verge of many breakthroughs. People get sick for a million different reasons. And so we got to figure out a reason how to fix it, with some other biochemistry or medicine or treatment, whatever. But it does take a lot of money. And the United States is one of the leading, if not the leading, country in developing cures around the world. So the top 5 countries are like the United States, the UK, Canada, Japan, Germany, that essentially do most of the research that provides cures all around the world. It is a global commitment to improving human health. So every dollar that you make, you put into research really helps find cures. So it's that back end research. I mean, you can devote money to an individual patient, like if they need to pay their mortgage or something. But that's
that's your GoFundMe. It's a different thing. Right?
Yeah, that's a totally different project. But to fund that original first stage research where you want to say, okay, what is happening with the cells? What are this biochemistry behind this problem? And how can we solve this? And with so many advances in biotechnology, I'm really confident that can happen, but it takes money.
Yeah.
So,
and so
donate,
that's why you want to
donate,
raise money.
donate.
So in seeing that and trying to make that dream come alive,
Mhm.
right? You struggled for years because you guys basically lived off your credit cards so you could
Oh, yeah.
reinvest your money, and you got into like crazy serious debt.
Yeah. So one really unusual thing about me was that I took a lot of risk. You know,
Yeah.
because of my medical problems, I was told I was going to die at 30. So I never saved a dime. I spent it all.
Financial planner's nightmare, right?
I dug myself into debt. I started this company with these guys. Well, I didn't. Sorry, I joined them after.
You weren't. To be fair, you weren't just like shopping and buying whatever you wanted,
No.
but you were living off those credit cards so you could put money back into the business and reinvest, right?
Right. I was taking out debt,
but you had to
even
even put your rent on a credit card because you weren't really pulling much salary. Like,
right.
Yeah, I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "No, this will be fine. Right?
It'll be fine."
Like, oh my god!
30 years later, it was fine. I just didn't think it would take me so long.
And eventually, you got to the point where you're like, "I can't do this," right? And you were, what year was it where you're like, "Okay, I'm so in debt," and a lot of bad things happened that year too.
Yeah, so we were struggling to make the company go. I mean, we had some great products. We were just basically breaking even, but not really paying ourselves really well. And
hardly at all.
We weren't really paying ourselves. And my partners were in debt too. And July 16th of 2005 was the last time I acquired debt. My boyfriend and I went out to this jazz club, which eventually turned into Hell's Kitchen. So my life went to hell that night. And because he had always paid for everything, that night it was my turn to treat. I was going to pay for this night out on the town, and it was really fun. We had a good time, and I signed that credit card bill at the end of the night and just felt sick.
Because you knew how in debt you were.
I knew I was $100,000 in debt, and I owed $40,000 in taxes.
So $140,000 in debt. Wow.
Yeah, and I just had to figure out a way out of this mess, and I just
didn't
couldn't
your car die too?
do it anymore. Yeah, so eventually I lost my car, I lost my apartment, my boyfriend left me, my cat had died.
Sounds like a country song. Yeah.
I know. I was like, don't give me any of your plants. They'll die too. And I just couldn't do it anymore. But I was still running, and that was moving meditation for me. That was like my calm, quiet time when, I wasn't sleeping at night. I was falling asleep during the day, but I could go for a run and kind of work out all that anxiety and have some really solid quiet time. Consistent, lengthy quiet time.
Start problem solving, and just even if it was just little steps for what can I do to fix this, or what could I do to fix that, right?
Yep. So
you kind of broke it down into pieces and kind of just started tackling each bit.
Yep. So the first step is stop acquiring debt and then living within your means. And so me and my business partners, we came up with a plan of making sure that we can get the taxes taken care of. Anyway, there's a lot of other details there.
That's another podcast, right?
That will come out. But eventually we did. We turned it around, and our products were doing great. And we got over 3,000 scientific publications using our products all over the world.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, and that's why I couldn't quit.
Yeah.
Because I would look at these research papers and see what people are doing with our products and how they were using them. And the breakthroughs were amazing. Even though I wasn't doing that research myself, I really contributed to that behind the scenes. We weren't in the hospital. We weren't in the basement of the hospital. We were in the strip mall behind the hospital. It's a couple steps removed from the research. But making part of the
huge impact so these companies could do what they needed to do, right?
Yeah. So I've been a part of the American biomedical industry my whole life in all these different stages, like first as a patient, then as a student at the University of Minnesota, a researcher, a grant collaborator, a vendor, a supplier, and now a donor. Wow. Kind of come full circle. I've seen all aspects of what happens with your dollars when you're doing medical research. Here's what happened. And it really makes me confident that we have these cures. They're on the horizon. They're out there. They're coming through. We just got to keep supporting it. Making it easier. I don't want these sick kids to keep going through what I went through, because that was pretty miserable.
Well, I mean, it gave you, you haven't talked about what you went through. Mm-mm. You're only starting to do that now, and you're in your 50s, right? So just think how free you could have been if you had that confidence back then, what you could have done, right?
Yeah, I was really, really ashamed of that.
Yeah.
My parents would freely tell anybody they got a hold of that, what kind of a medical freak I was. And it just made me feel defective,
Yeah.
and that, I wasn't worthy of anything. And this identity of being a sick kid was just awful. I don't want to be in that club. I don't want to be that. And so fortunately, my family were kind of smart. And so I really glommed onto that. Like, okay, I like being the smart kid. Especially, it's kind of funny. My maiden name is Hed. It's just Hed. A nice Swedish name that means Moors, like the British Moors, Moor. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of fitting. I like being the smart aleck, smarty kid.
Smart kid. So you worked at that. And you also really kind of helped get that company turned around so you could get paid, right? And then in, what was it, 2020 you sold it? Was that right?
Yeah. So we eventually turn around the company. My business partners retired. I bought them out. I took out an SBA loan as a single woman. Woohoo!
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I managed.
And you also owned a house by this time, right?
Yep, I paid off all the debt. Paid it myself. 100% of that debt. I paid it all. We all paid our debts. We did it. And
I was so proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, it was amazing.
It's huge because you really you lived with nothing for so many years, and I was always wondering how are you even doing this, right? But it's because you were so motivated to get through this other stuff.
I would look at my spreadsheet every day, and QuickBooks is my best friend. It never lies to you. It never doesn't judge you. It just Oh, and I used a service called Family Means as a consumer credit counseling service.
Okay,
and that was amazing. They helped refinance my debt, negotiate the debt with my creditors. They didn't reduce any of the debt, but it came up with better terms so I could pay it off easier.
Yeah.
Which again
is what they told you would take 10 years to pay it off, but you killed that, didn't you?
Yeah, I paid it all off in 4.5, including all the student loans I had. Everything was paid off in 4.5 years instead of this.
That's pretty amazing.
10-year or longer horizon. Yeah, and when I started that program, it felt hopeless because 10 years, at least 10 years to pay it off. And then I was like, well, I got to start somewhere. It's that journey of 1,000 steps starts with one. Where are you going to go? Well, it's that phone call to the counseling service, the credit service, and then taking all the steps to sign the papers. And it was worth it. It was worth it. And the more progress I made, I could really see how well I was doing. So I paid it off, and it was amazing. There you go. There's the summary of that story. And then in 2020, when I sold the company, that was incredible. All of my dreams have come true. Almost, except for one.
What's the one dream that hasn't come true?
I still have this medical problem. I wish I had perfect skin. I wish I didn't have all these scars from the treatments. I wish I had some cleavage. I have everything but cleavage.
And I think you talk about cleavage. You're talking about you've always had to wear really high neck things because you've had big scars from the treatments.
From the treatments,
the surgeries,
from surgery. And when they decided they would go in and poke around for a while,
see what they could do.
That's not fun,
right?
And that always made me feel less than. I could never relate to other girls. I always look and see what they're wearing and what they. Look so cute, and I wasn't gonna wear that. I wasn't gonna wear the swimsuit. I'm gonna wear a t-shirt or something to cover up. Always covering up. Always figuring out a way to do that.
But it also maybe felt like you were covering your shame, right? So
I was really ashamed of all that, and it was really hard to work through that. A couple of years of therapy helped. A big supportive friend like Deanna. Yep, everybody has their inspiration, their support team.
We help each other all the time, right?
Awesome. Yeah, and so really
now your dream is to kind of kick that shame to the curb, right?
I want to
have beautiful skin so you could show off your cleavage if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, I probably won't ever do that, but hey, maybe that's a lie I'm telling myself. But now I'm I used to say God owes me. God owes me. I was dealt this really crappy hand of cards, for life, this really crappy deal, and I'll spare you the details.
Well, you went through a lot.
I went through a lot, and God owes me. I felt like God owes me.
Today?
And now I don't. I feel like, okay, now he made it up for me or she made it up. Life is good. And now it's time for me to say thank you. I got to turn that shame into something positive. I'm not done yet. I've got a lot more energy. I can do things. And maybe this fun hobby of the running and the podcast and all these amazing people I've met who have also faced many medical challenges, part of their journey. And this podcast is not a disease of the week, we don't have to get into details about that, but
it's people who inspire you. And why are they doing some of these things, and how are they driven? Right?
Yeah, and these obstacles they've had, and how incredible they've rebounded, how they manage, their techniques for resilience. And for me, coping as a kid, it was okay. You said I would never talk about it, and it's true. I didn't, because it was so difficult to talk about it, because it would bring up all the painful feelings of being there and, you're going to die. And I was like, okay, I just have to stop. I'm not stop thinking about that. And I'm going to focus on doing something that I really enjoy. Yeah. Like going for a bike ride. Yeah. I'm
having a sleepover.
Having a sleepover with my bestie. I'm going to refocus on something I really like. You can be upset about something. You have to be upset about it, but don't wallow in it. Don't let that fear overtake your life. I mean, you do have to process the grief. You have to kind of work through that.
It is grief, right? It's
I had to mourn the girl I never was. And I would always look at my older sister is 6-7 years older than me, and I always think, that's the life I should have had. Yeah. That I missed out on. Yeah. But I turned it into something different, something better. Well, I can't say my life is better than hers, but
she's got a pretty good life.
I didn't make it a bad life. I made it a good life for myself. Yeah. And she's doing pretty well, and we're having fun together, and it's all good.
And I think now people talk to you and you're able to inspire them, not only through what you've done with your marathons, but the business you've run and how you've helped all those other companies who are doing the research to, I think you've always been active, skiing, tennis, running, like you name it. You've always been doing different things. And I think you've lived a really full life, and maybe because you felt like you had nothing to lose. But I feel like, for me, I just felt like we could achieve anything and go anywhere because, we both believed in the possible.
Yeah. Right? And absolutely one thing we have in common about you is that we're both naturally happy people. I mean, thank God. Thank God I'm a naturally happy person, because, I got that diagnosis, and I wanted to die. I'm like, I would rather kill myself than go through this again. Yeah. I am not going on the transplant list. When I hit 30, that's it. Yeah. If they tell me I'm going to need more treatment, that's it. I'm going to end it all. And
I can't even imagine how scary that was.
And so I felt like I had nothing to lose. Yeah. I might as well throw everything in at the company, and why not? I'm not gonna have to pay this back. I don't have to think about retirement,
And now you're having to do retirement planning, which is the best.
Right, And then they told me, I was gonna live, and then I had to go like, oh crap, now I got to pay back this debt. What am I going to do? Man, I thought I could just, stick it to my family to pay for the coffin. Yeah. Now I got to pay it back.
But not only did you do that and you're making it work, but now you're turning it into, how can you even, like you said, bring it full circle, bring this funding to help more kids, right?
Right. Yeah. And you've gone through some challenges too. I mean, you haven't had such a severe medical issue that I
haven't had any of those severe medical issues. But I don't think allergies count.
Down here they
just
might.
Hay fever,
yeah. But you've always been my inspiration. And couple stories about you. You came down here as a single girl.
I did, 2003.
All by yourself. And
I moved down here for at least a couple years to see how it would work, right?
Yeah. And you always wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And you made that dream come true.
I did. I think the challenge with that is I was never able to figure out the partner who wanted to have kids with me.
Yeah. Right? A lot of women face this, that you're between relationships that don't work out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, my God, you're like 35 and a geriatric mother. And what do you do?
Well, I think I was at an OBGYN appointment, and they were like, hey, do you want to go on the IUD? You're pretty old. I was like, he didn't say it like that. Obviously, a lot more tactful. But I was like, oh no, I want to have kids. And he was kind of like, oh, honey, like that's not really recommended at your age. So
I know they don't tell you that when you're
Yeah.
18. It's like, you got to have those kids before you're 35.
Yeah.
You know, and I never did.
Yeah.
You know.
And at that time I hadn't either. And I didn't have anyone serious in my life. So I started researching adoption and trying to figure that out before I finally worked and, found a doctor who would help me. And that was even a journey, and then found a sperm donor, and my girlfriends were here and we looked at all the profiles and picked it. And now I have my son, and, I was what you call a choice mom, right? No, it wasn't a relationship that broke up, but I basically used a sperm bank and a doctor to have my son. And it's been the most fulfilling thing in my life. But at the time I did it, it was pretty new. Right. It wasn't a regular thing that was happening. You were starting to read about it, but I wouldn't call myself a pioneer in any way of the means, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of people like me that I knew. You pretty much had a boyfriend or something like that. And I didn't want to do it that way.
Right.
If I didn't have the right person. And I'm still trying to find that Mr. Right. But I do have an amazing 14-year-old son.
I was going to say Mr. Right might just be the 14-year-old boy of your dreams.
I'm making a Mr. Right for someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, without that kind of medical intervention, that background research, none of that would have happened for you either.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful for it, right? It's been such a blessing in my life. And I even look at my parents and how great he's been with them. And I just can't even imagine my life without him or having that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I think it would have been devastating for me to not have kids. And while I would have loved to have more, I was like, okay, on my own, one is about all I can manage. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you for having him. He's so amazing. Yeah. And for me, when I was 13, I made those little vows. I'm going to walk out of this hospital. I'm going to go through school as fast as I can. I'm going to meet some people and travel, have friends all over the world and travel around. But I'm never getting married and I'm never having kids.
But you got married.
But at 47, I finally did get married.
He's pretty amazing.
I finally decided to believe a man when he told me he loved me. Yeah. That was pretty critical, and he's pretty great. And, and now it's time for me to say thank you. Thanks to the world for helping me work it out. Things have come together, and having this fun running career, I have, and with my business, I have met people all over the world. And it's been incredible. And Deanna travels all the time too. And she's got her buddies, and I got mine, and we got each other.
Yeah. And I'm excited to hear the stories that you bring, right? Because I think everybody has those days where it's tough, or like, how am I going to do this or that? And finding those inspirational stories can help you get through those hard days or hard times, or just inspire you to realize you could do something bigger than you might have even dreamed, which I think is a really huge thing too.
Right. Or you have these dreams come true that you didn't even know you had in the first place. Exactly. So maybe let's wrap that up here. Let's make this dream come true. If you want to support the cause, make a donation for medical research.
Very good reason.
Very good reason. Yes. Keep those kids healthy.
A minimum, subscribe to this podcast, right? You're not going to want to miss all the stories this woman is going to bring to you, because I know she sees life in a very special way, and I think you're going to enjoy those stories. So
and
thanks for having me here today.
And
it's really great to be here with you.
Yeah, and hopefully we can learn some things from the other people about how they've overcome their obstacles and what drove them to accomplish these amazing feats. I'm looking forward to it. I'm scared though. I'm scared. Now I've just come out of the closet.
Well, you've been holding that shame and keeping it a secret, which I think eats at you. And now you're trying to be brave and open that door and step in front of that curtain. And it's something you've pushed down since your parents kind of labeled you, right?
Yeah. I've been keeping a secret. I keep secrets. You keep secrets. People keep secrets.
People keep secrets.
I keep secrets, and now my secrets.
But
no.
But I think your secrets can help someone else get through their shame or their challenge of trying to get through this stuff. Because nobody wants to say, I'm sick or I got this challenge that makes me less than cool, right? And so we got to find new ways. And I think you're showing them ways they can do that.
Yeah. And hopefully no other kids will have to go through that either.
Awesome.
Awesome.
She's unstoppable.
You're unstoppable. Give me 5. This is the uncomfortable high five.
There we go. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening. It's been amazing. Thanks for tuning in to my very first episode. Deanna and I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And thanks for putting up with our silliness, too. So if this episode hits home, share it, subscribe, leave a review. Let's build this community together of relentless people who refuse to stop moving forward. And if you want to do something even bigger, support our mission. We're raising $1 million for medical research, and your support really does make a difference. Check out our website at unstoppablestoriesthatmove.com to make a donation. I'm Sally Hed Dahlquist, along with my best friend Deanna Johnson. Until next time, keep running, keep pushing, and never stop proving to yourself what's possible.